Hey guys, welcome back to Bustin Experience. This is Brandon. We have quite the episode for you guys. I'm excited to do this episode, although it is a very hard episode, and there's going to be a lot of material in here that you may disagree with. And as you guys know, there's been a murder, and the country is going crazy. So we're going to go through the George Floyd video. And we're going to give you our opinion. And my dad here, as you know, if you've seen him, he is a cop and a nurse, and he's going to give his perspective based on those things. And my lovely wife is also joining us, Stephanie, and she doesn't want me to tell you that she's a history major, which I think is important. So we won't say that, I promise. All right, babe? It's just a bachelor, so it's not that big of a deal. All right? So, with all that said, and I was also out there in the protest myself. What was it, Sunday?
On Sunday.
Last Sunday.
May 31st.
So I was in there. I'll give you my perspective on what I saw. I also did a video. I will post it in the YouTube channel as well, so you can go and watch it and see kind of what it was like out there. With all that said, we will get started. I will actually turn it over to you, Steph. So what did you think when you first saw this video and everything kind of started rolling out with George Floyd?
So the first time I actually saw the video was today. Not because I didn't believe it or I didn't care, but more of I knew how crazy it was going to be. Someone died. You don't want to watch that. You don't want to watch someone dying. Sure, the movies, you know it's fake, but this is real life. Like, you don't want to just go out of your way and see someone dying. So when I heard that this came out, I knew it happened because it's all over the news. People are upset. People are posting about this. Not only this time, we had that guy who was running. He was just running the neighborhood, shot down by two white men who decided to, he doesn't look safe. I'm going to just go ahead and go after him. Like, what? And then you have the woman, the nurse, who was killed in her own bed. Again, another tragedy.
Yeah.
And not that this is race, but then you also have that woman in Miami killed her son. Went to a canal and murdered him. And these aren't things that you want to watch. These are happening one after the other, and it's like, what?
Yeah.
Like, what's happening?
Yeah. People are going crazy.
Yeah, and I think this was finally the last straw as to these things happening one after the other, and the country and we have coronavirus happening. There's so much tension that eventually exploded.
Yep.
And then we have all these protests, and rightfully so, because death is not easy. We all handle grief differently, and once we explode like that, it's hard to try and control that.
Yeah.
And so I know we're going to talk a little bit about the protests, but I want to make it clear that we do hear you, because we're going to have we're going to have very similar opinions, but we're going to have a little bit of different opinions, especially different perspectives, like you mentioned. I'm from Miami, I'm Latina, I used to have an accent, I don't anymore. And I'm just not used to such cultural divide.
Yeah. In
Miami, it's, you're black? Oh, that means you're Dominican. That's kind of the perspective that I have. You're Hispanic like I am.
Yeah.
And it didn't, not that color didn't matter, because color does matter, but it was more of, I respect you for who you are.
Yeah.
And for your cultural differences. So I want to kind of lay that down, because we are going to talk about this murder, we should say.
Yeah, definitely.
Because it's a black man killed by a white man, and we're three white people going to talk about this. And so I just want to kind of lay that foundation that we do believe that black lives do matter.
Absolutely. And their voices should be heard.
Yes.
They should be heard. When I saw this video, my heart definitely turned. I was just like, And I watched it once, and there was a couple things at first that was kind of weird. And then I went back and I watched it again, and there was a couple things about the video that just really didn't seem right about how the whole situation was handled. And and I don't know. And honestly, as I was bouncing off of you, like it became a little more clear. But I think there's a lot more going on here than just racism. I do think racism is 100% real. But I also do think that I think honestly, even more importantly, is evil in the world.
Yes.
You take care of evil, you take care of racism, right? That's just a byproduct of what evil is. And I think that needs to be the focal point, because I think we are still trying to make it about skin color in one way or another. And it shouldn't be about that. It should be about evil versus good. But go ahead and give your thoughts, Dad, and then we'll turn it over to you, and we'll let you dissect this video for us as a police officer and also as a nurse, and say what was handled wrong, maybe what they did right, and me and Steph will just not criticize you, but critique you and ask the hard questions, because okay. I mean, this is a real thing, guys, and I want to stress this too. Okay, this isn't to try to fight with anybody. If you're here to fight, go away. Don't want your subscriptions. Don't want anything from you. Just go away. If you are a truth seeker like I am, then please, by all means, give your feedback. What do you think? What do you know? Put it in the comments, because we are all should be all in a search of truth. But if you're just here to cause problems and you're here to cause more hate and division, go away. Right now, this is your time to leave. Thank you. All right, so now it is on you, Dad.
Okay, well, I appreciate it. First of all, a couple of things I do want to say. I do have sort of an unusual or unique position that I can look at this from a couple of perspectives. I can look at it both from law enforcement, because I was a police officer for 8 years, conducted arrests, so I know what the standard operating procedure for that type of activity is. Later on, I've got nearly 20 years as a nurse. I didn't work as an EMS, but I did work close to them when I was a police officer. And I do know medical protocol, both when I was in the field as a police officer and as a nurse if I'm assessing a patient. So when I look at this, first of all, let me say this. I believe with all my heart that, as far as I can tell, that Mr. George Floyd was murdered. And it was a horrendous thing. I have no doubt that occurred. My issue is I'm a little concerned about the narrative behind it, and what causes me concern is what I looked at, and through my experience, we were talking about what they did wrong and what they did right. I can see anything they did right, and it looks like they went out of their way to do everything wrong, everything. What they did do is to kill this man, and that's heartbreaking. It looks as though that this man, in my opinion, was literally sacrificed for a purpose. Now, when I first saw this video, and I don't know exactly how you want to play through this, but there were some things that just glaringly jumped out at me. When I first saw it, I wasn't looking at anything going on around him. I was focused on that man, and I just thought, what a terrible thing. And of course, the idea and the narrative was what a terrible racist thing that was done, and that very well may be a big part of it. But I think there is more to it than that. I think there was a purpose behind this, and as we go through this and we talk about it, I'll try to show why I think so. Yeah. In the first place, when these officers were attempting to arrest Mr. Floyd, and of course we find him on the ground with actually 3 police officers on him. You only see one in the video, and that's the white officer that's on his neck. But there are also 2 other officers on the other side of that vehicle that are holding him down. Now, I realize in watching this that Mr. Floyd was handcuffed. The question that I had as a police officer, a former police officer, what's the end game here? If you're trying to subdue the man and he's already handcuffed and you've got 3 officers, why are you on his neck? And I looked at that, and in some ways it almost looked like it was an intent. Look at what I am doing to this man. It is a horrendous thing. It is absolutely just mind-boggling that people could be like this. But I saw that officer on that man's neck for 10 minutes. Again, I asked the question, what's the end game here? what it looked like, it didn't look like police brutality. It looked like outright murder to me. But that being said, was the motive behind it just strictly race? One of the things that is very, very odd is that Mr. Floyd is a black male. Mr. Chauvin, who is on Officer Chauvin, who was on his neck, obviously is white. But there were also 3 other officers that were involved in this, and every one of them was a minority. They weren't black, but they would be considered a minority. That seemed really, really odd to me. So as I continued to watch, I watched the video, and I'll hit some highlights, and then we can go back. One of the things that I noticed is that Officer Chauvin kept the pressure on Mr. Floyd's neck throughout. And when EMS got there, one of the first things I asked myself was, why is EMS there? No one had assessed this man. How did they know they were going to need an ambulance? That was just a big question for me. And then I saw the EMT guy. He came around and he did what would have been called a carotid check. He was going to check the carotid artery, I presume, to see if there was a pulse. But if you watch the video, he did it while Officer Chauvin's knee was still on his neck. That makes no sense. There is no standard operating procedure that I know of in medical or law enforcement that's okay. That just makes absolutely no sense to me. So you see them getting the gurney out as though that Mr. Floyd is going to need, and Mr. Chauvin, Officer Chauvin, is still on his neck. Now, my question is, and I think that the carotid check was totally bogus. It makes no sense to me. But let's presume, for the sake of argument, that they determined he was in medical need or he was dead. So let's look, or deceased. I'm sorry, I don't mean to be so graphic, but he was deceased. And if you look at it that he would need medical attention, if the EMS got there and they determined that he needs some sort of life-saving action to be taken, they would have done it right there. There was no big crowd. There was no reason to move that man. If he needed CPR, if he needed a line started, whatever he might have needed, they needed to do it right there at that moment.
Immediately.
They didn't do anything. They didn't do any of that. None of it. The other part of that would be, well, if he's deceased then now you have a crime scene. You have a death investigation that needs to be carried out. You don't need to move this man. Again, unless there was some kind of crowd issue or something, which there wasn't, then what you need to do is you cordon this all off and you do a death investigation. That wasn't done either. No, what they did is they stayed on Mr. Floyd's neck the whole time, went through this whole scenario as though they were checking his pulse and this, that, and the other, and then rather than handling him like an EMT, EMS would do after they've assessed the patient, they just absolutely picked that man up like he was just dead weight. It was absolutely offensive to me. Mm-hmm. Then they put him in the ambulance. Now the lights and sirens, the lights were still going because the lights were on when they arrived. But when they left, and that tape went on long enough that you could see the ambulance leaving and you could see the officers kind of getting ready to get into their vehicles and stuff, and you realize that the ambulance was out of sight, but it would have been in close enough that you could have heard a siren if they'd have turned it on. Mm-hmm. They didn't do that either. Yeah. So there are a lot of questions to me as to what was the end game for these officers. What was it that they were trying to accomplish? Why did he never get off this guy's neck? Why were they doing a carotid check while he's still on his neck? Why didn't they do whatever was necessary either to save him or to do a death investigation? But no, this just looked like almost like an execution for the camera's sake, and that everything around it just seemed to be sort of smoke and mirrors.
So I guess my question would be, well, then if it's an execution, then who's executing him?
That would be interesting to find out. That we need to talk to these officers. We need to know kind of what's going on, and that's the other part of this that sort of bothers me. The first thing they say when they came back, the medical examiner's office that would normally run this came back and said, well, it wasn't asphyxiation, which means that he didn't die because his neck was occluded.
And if you can, you can let me know.
But there were others.
But
that's where I was going to go. Okay. So then you have another one that comes in and says that it was. So now you've got competing diagnoses, and here's the beauty of this.
Somebody's lying.
It keeps the water muddy.
Mm-hmm.
What is the truth?
Mm-hmm.
That way you keep the anger up.
Mm-hmm.
So as I looked at this, I just realized that whole scene, I mean, it wasn't even a good movie.
Let me say this too, because like you said, the water's muddy, but he either died of asphyxiation or not.
Right.
It's not like, oh, I can pick and choose. It's no, I need to find out what the truth is.
Right.
If there's two different diagnoses, he can't have died from asphyxiation and not asphyxiation. Right. Like, you got to find what it is. And just because it fits your narrative and that's what you want to do, and maybe he did die of asphyxiation, and if that's the case, then that is on everybody else to be like, okay, but we got to find the truth. And unfortunately, we live in a society today that is lies, that is snapshots, that is, whatever you want. If you want an opinion, you can go find it, and you will find people that will support you, but that does not mean it is the truth.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
Go find the truth. That is your job. If you don't find the truth, then you are not doing your job. All right? And I'm not saying I'm right. I'm not saying, anybody is right, but I'm saying that I search for the truth, and we all need to be doing that together. And if you don't, then you don't care, and that's adding to the problem.
Mm-hmm. Very much so. I had alluded as we were talking earlier, my opinion of this event, because as you look, while they're trying to clear the muddy water, the nation's burning. The nation is burning because of the narrative that has been pushed. I termed this reminds me, as we were discussing, I really think that this is a moment in America which is parallel to the Reichstag fire in Germany. Back when Germany, this was before World War II, they'd just been through World War I, their economy was just a mess, it was just awful. The Nazis were able to secure a little bit of power in the German government, but they didn't have enough really to do anything. Shortly after they became part of the government, the Reichstag, which would be similar to our Capitol building, was set on fire and just burnt to the ground. The Communist Party was blamed for it. The Nazis were able to get their brown shirts and stuff, and they went after the communists, and they built this big narrative of how they could resolve this issue. And of course, the Nazis got power, and the rest is history. The Reichstag fire that was blamed on the communists to get all of that going was actually set by the Nazis. The Nazis did it because they needed to control the narrative. They needed to get the anger of the people in Germany up so that they would support them, which is exactly what they did. And then once they had power, there was no turning back. Now we know when we look back, it was the Nazis that actually started that fire. That's what this feels like. This feels like somehow a group that is interested in literally just destroying America, not black, not white, most likely it's a mixture, have put things into motion to create the havoc that we have now. A number of people have talked about in a number of cities, you've got big pallets of bricks that just all of a sudden had shown up around this same period of time. You have people who have been given this narrative of basically a racial hit, which I think it may be more than that, and who are legitimately and rightfully, based on what they believe has happened, are protesting. If this is race-baited, I'm telling you, I'm walking with you. But it seems like there's something more going here. It was almost an in-your-face type of thing. And why are the communities now so ready and armed by whomever's arming them for battle? There have been some reports, and I don't know how many, it could have been one or two cars, but they're saying in some of these locations, some vehicles were located that had incendiary devices, and it could be something like a Molotov cocktail. It doesn't have to be something complicated. But there was a lot of forethought in this, and there's a lot going on here. This feels like an attempt to start a civil war. And I don't say that. One of the things is I certainly want peace. As a believer of Yeshua, the Prince of Peace, I certainly want peace between the brethren. But that being said, I no peace at all costs at the murder of individuals. You're going to call it what it is, and if it's racist, then that's what we're going to call it. But if it's something else with an attempt to divide the races, to make us hate each other on a false narrative, I don't mean this didn't happen. This man was murdered.
Yeah.
But the reason may be totally different than what we're getting. There are a lot of people that are getting a lot of headway out of this narrative. If the blacks and the white communities were to suddenly discover that we've been played, I guarantee you there would be a union there against whatever the forces are that are trying to destroy us. But as I look at this video, it just screams that this was staged. I don't mean the murder. I mean he was murdered. But the reason behind it sure makes me wonder, because they didn't do anything by the book. Nothing. This just looks like we're going to put this on film, we're going to get things loaded up, and we're out of here. Yeah. It's very uncomfortable for me to watch it, both to see this man suffer and to see what these people did. It's a travesty. But I think we have more things going on than just race here.
Yeah, and there's definitely a lot, because like you said, there's a lot going on, and there's soldiers in this fight. Which I saw people there, and so me and there's a couple other people that were taking video at the protests, and I'll get more into that in a minute. But there was a guy handing money to people to try to go destroy stuff, and I'll post that video in the link as well, so you guys can watch that for yourself. It's like a 30-second video.
Here's a question: where'd you get that money? Who funded this?
Yeah, exactly.
Who funded this?
And why? Yeah. What's the purpose? I don't know.
Well, it's like leaving the bricks out.
Yep.
This is orchestrated, and one of the things is you have good faith protesters that are being infiltrated by people that want to create anarchy. That's all they want. They're not looking for a good faith conversation with you. They're not looking to find a just ends. They're looking for anarchy and to destroy as much as they can possibly destroy. You're seeing it in our streets all over the place, all over the nation. So it feels like that this was coordinated, and it doesn't feel nearly spontaneous. One of the things that you mentioned, and I think is very pertinent, you're seeing this all over the world. Yes. You're seeing these kinds of things. And it seems like you're having the same sort of things that are showing up that sort of help persist, I guess just foster more and more of a negativity and allow people to use, I don't know, whatever these things that are being delivered by whomever. And you're talking about money being handed out. There's something going on here.
Yeah.
There really is.
Definitely. And,
not to just interrupt you. One other thing. Part of the narrative on here, the gentleman that was taking the video, and he's part of the narrative, it's obvious that while he is taking this video, and this kind of made me scratch my head too, it seems like there were only about 4 or 5 people that were actually there outside of the police department, police officers. And you hear a bit of a dialogue, and then you hear what appears to be a bystander who happens to come up, and the guy holding the camera phone engages him in a conversation and is actually trying to get him to leave. And he does this several times. He said, "I got it, bro. We got this covered," or whatever, and asks him to leave. Now, my question is, why wouldn't you want more witnesses? Again, it just really sounds like none of this is making any sense.
Actually, just to cut in there, I'm just thinking about this because you told me this already. But how old was he? Because he said, "I know your family" in the video, which we're gonna see in a little bit. But he says, "I know your family." How old is he? Because if he's
no, they didn't say that.
He sounds like he was at least probably in his early 20s, just from his voice, maybe late teens at the youngest. So I'm going to argue, if he's a teenager, if he's 17 years old, and I'm this person who knows your family, I may not want you to see this.
No.
So
I just want to throw that out there too. I may not want you to see what's going on because this may be too much for you.
And that's definitely potential, but I will say this because something about that switch though, between him talking to him and him then addressing what's going on, as an actor, that doesn't feel organic. That doesn't feel like, I'm genuinely concerned about this guy. It's almost just like, "Oh, bro, get out of here. I know your family, man. What are you doing? You're standing on his neck. Bro, get out of here. I got this. I don't need you, bro. What are you doing?"
Well,
it just doesn't, it doesn't feel.
But then when I'm working, I'm straight-faced, talking to my colleague on Zoom, and then the kids come walking through, I mute, and I'm like, "Get out of here!" And then I unmute, and I'm fine.
But that's what I'm saying. That's still a genuine thing. Like, you're yelling at them, and then you're trying to keep your composure. But there was just a disconnect between the two. Like, it's hard to because there's two different extremes based on what you're doing. Right? I got to keep my professionalism, which is a very real thing, and then there's my kids who are coming in because I'm a woman that has kids, and I need to get the heck out of here. And then it's like, get out. Hey guys, how are you? Like that's even though it's not genuine, but it is. I'm trying to be professional and I'm trying to do this at the same time. But with him, it was almost just like, I don't know. It was really weird. It was just like, it felt the same. Does that make sense? Like, that's where the disconnect was. It was like, it felt the same. It was like, bro, I got this. Get out of here. What are you doing, man? Like, just stop. Like, what do you do, dude? I don't need you here. Like, blah blah blah. It's like, okay. Like, if you know me, if it was somebody I knew, I would be like, bro, like, you don't want to see this man. Like, this is going to be bad. Like, if I knew him and I knew his family, I would talk to that man different than I would talk to that man that's standing on somebody's neck. Does that make sense?
And it may not be a good. I'm just saying that we don't truly know.
Mm-hmm. No. I agree.
He tells us.
I agree.
We are making observations, and I really think that it's because he was probably a teenager, and he didn't want him to see this because. I didn't even want to see this.
But again, that's another question that needs to be asked. How old was this kid? Why did he not want him to see this? Like, if there's other people there, if everybody's there, I feel like more witnesses would be better. You know what I'm saying? Like, different perspectives, right? Maybe he's going to see something that you will not see. You're focused on the dude with the knee on the neck. What about the other guys? Maybe they're doing something, right? What if you saw another officer, and I mean, I'm just throwing this out there, this didn't happen, injecting him with something to try to cause him to have a heart attack, right? Because that's what they're saying killed him, if not asphyxiation. It was like, you see what I'm saying? Like, more eyes, the better off it is.
Well, didn't he have heart issues?
Well, that's what they claim. Here's the thing about it. We only know what we're being told.
Yeah,
now, they say heart
issues. Yeah,
exactly. Okay. Exactly. But here's what I do know. I watched that video from the perspective of a former police officer and a former nurse. None of that made any sense.
Yeah.
Now, we can conjecture that they've talked about the uniforms don't quite look right. They talked about the badges and all that. And that may or may not have anything to do with it.
I wouldn't about the badges.
No, I'm not. I wouldn't die on that sword. That just makes that it could be. It might not be. Really, it's immaterial. But what I am looking at is the actual actions of those police officers. All of them. None of them are following standard operating procedure. None of them. You look and you ask, what's the end game? I don't know. It looked like murder to me. And then you figure, what is EMS doing? They're coming in. The guy's still on his neck, and you're doing a carotid artery. This to me. Without a doubt, this isn't just supposition. I'm looking at it. This is objective viewing. This makes no sense.
Yeah.
So there are enough anomalies that there are other little things like the boy, telling him to go on and things with the uniform and all that.
How about we go through the video and I'm not going to put it anywhere on the screen. You guys will have the audio. You should be able to hear it. If you want to watch the video, I will tag the link in the description. I think it's not for most viewers, and also be advised that there's language in there. So that is your warning. All right. So go ahead, and then you'll critique this for us, and so we can ask some questions.
All right. The setup for where you pick up on this off the bat is you've got the vehicle and you've got the police officers that are already in position on top of Mr. Floyd's neck, and you can't see the other two officers on the other side of the vehicle holding him down, but there are three officers on this handcuffed man. Again, what's the end game here? What is the purpose of all this, particularly for 10 minutes? So that's where we're at. He's on the ground. He's breathing. He's responding. He's speaking. That's where we're at this point.
Turn it up. Size of it. Go ahead and pause it real quick just for 1 second. One initial thing is, like, when you watch it, like, it's very appalling. And one thing that I think that we all got to try to do, as hard as this is for sure, is we got to put emotion aside and we got to look at everything that's going on. Because if you're focused on that, you may miss a lot of things that are going on.
Yeah. Let me add one little caveat. I can watch this because, having been a police officer, I had to deal with death. I had to deal with a lot of things that looked really, really ugly. Mm-hmm. So when I look at this, I am not unfeeling. This breaks my heart. Mm-hmm. As I say, to me, it's even worse. It looked like this man was a sacrificial lamb. And that, to me, somehow, if you want to talk about it, ratcheting it up a notch, that's what this feels like.
Yeah.
So as we're watching this again, and you're right, we're not ignoring the pleas for this poor man, but we do recognize we're trying to get to the truth. And I know he would want the truth. I would certainly think so. Everything that I've heard about him from his family and others,
yeah, I was saying the same thing.
It sounds like that he would want the truth, and that if things are being done in his name under a false pretense, I think he'd want to know the truth.
Absolutely.
So that's what we're looking for. We're looking for truth to give some real meaning to this man's life and what just happened to him.
Absolutely.
We've got about 4 bystanders here that are viewing this.
What do you want? I can't breathe. Please, I can't breathe shit. Bro, get up, get in the car, man. I will. Get up, get in the car. I can't move. I've been waiting the whole time, man. Get up, get in.
I have a question. If they're saying get up and get in the car, why is 3 people piled on him?
Makes no sense. It makes absolutely no sense whatsoever. You've got this dialogue, which is in a lot of cases an incendiary dialogue. It's one of those things where it grips into your emotions. Again, I don't want to put things where they're not, but a lot of this just really feels like a pull for emotion, even as you're watching literally a man die.
Yeah, agreed.
Which is a terrible thought. I mean, that would be beyond heinous.
Agreed.
Oh, so anyway.
And I mean, unfortunately, that's the purpose of also acting, is to really grip the emotions of people, because you're trying to get an emotional response from them.
And one thing we want to reiterate, Mr. Floyd wasn't acting.
No, yeah.
Everybody else may have been,
acting.
but he wasn't acting. That man was killed. But as we hear this, and you hear a dialogue, well, get up and get in the car, and he can't. He's got 3 men on him. So some of this really just doesn't make a whole lot of sense.
Yeah.
Get in the car. Get up and get in the car right. I can't. I gave y'all the opportunity to get in, bro. You can't win. My knee. You can't win, man. I'm through. I know you were naked, you didn't listen. That's the movie. My stomach hurts. My neck hurts. Everything hurts. Some water or something. Please. Please. I can't breathe all the time. They gonna kill me, man.
Now, throughout this whole thing, these officers are in one position. They're holding this man down. And I have to ask the question, what is the end game? What is it you're trying to do? This man is on the ground. He is subdued. There are 3 officers on him.
Handcuffed.
He is breathing, handcuffed. He can talk. Why are you still on him? Why are you still on his neck? As a police officer, what is the end game? Okay, start that back up.
Well, and one more thing is, because we haven't mentioned this before, at least here in this video, is that's not police practice.
Not at all.
No.
Like, it's not a practice to put your knee on, like, that is not taught.
Also, one thing, too, you'll hear in this video, because you just said that, is he says that, maybe I should wait for it to come up.
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about?
We'll give him a sort of a preface here. The gentleman that's holding the camera phone makes a reference to himself, being at the police academy or having some training and calling out the officers' training. I don't know, but it seems like someone trying to at least allude to their coming from a position of knowledge on police tactics. So that's kind of what this feels like.
Yeah.
Bro, with your feet on that net, man, you get off the
His nose is bleeding. Like,
Yeah,
come on
that's
now.
raw right there with his feet on that net.
Look at his
You
nose.
just see your knee in his neck. Yeah, you got your feet right on his neck, bro. He ain't even resisting the rest.
I cannot breathe.
You just a grown, you're a tough guy. You're a tough guy, huh? See, he's a tough guy. He not even resisting the rest, bro.
His whole nose is
Bro, but why you just sitting there? He ain't doing nothing. You put him in the car.
How long y'all gotta hold him down?
Why would you do drugs, kids? It ain't about drugs, bro. I understand that.
Now, several things we're saying. Why don't you put him in the car? Why are you still holding him down? Those are good questions.
Yeah, valid
Those are good questions. Why are you?
Valid question.
He's still moving. He's still breathing. Again, what's the end game? Why aren't you doing these things? Those were valid questions. No answers.
And one more thing. Why would he be bleeding from his nose?
At that point, sort of where his face is, there's a possibility. You push down, you could scrape your nose. It could be any number. It could be internal. It could be just on the outside.
Could it be from pressure on his neck that could cause him to have a nosebleed?
Well, it could. I could see a position where that might happen, but I would think that there wouldn't be any ambivalence about what killed him, because that would almost imply huge thing on the neck, and I don't think that when
He'd
you're
have to
doing an
be like
autopsy
almost-
you'd mistake. Oh, well, maybe it was an asphyxiation. No, if that's because of something done to the neck, I think that'd be pretty self-evident.
But he'd
pretty
have
quick.
to be like almost like kneeing him repeatedly in the neck, that kind of force.
Yeah, and even that, there's just it's hard to go down this road. I guess that's possibly a way that they're saying that could kill him. I also know what they said about drugs, and I'm kind of with you. I don't really want to go down there, but there are a lot of ways to introduce drugs that will mimic all kinds of things.
Yeah.
So I don't know what was going on here,
Yeah.
but what I do know is that man was alive, and there was a lot going on there, and by the time it was over, that man was dead, and I didn't see anything happen other than they killed him.
Yeah.
That's it. That was
Yeah.
it. There was nothing by the book on this at all,
Yeah.
either through them or EMS.
I just didn't know if the nosebleed had anything to do with the fact that he was stopping, that he almost couldn't.
Maybe.
Yeah.
It's but again, we're going back at that point. That's information we can't possibly know,
Instead
and
of
whatever
talking like-
information they're giving us, it might not be good.
Okay.
So we don't know. So we're going to have to almost go with our observations and what we know through our experiences based on that type of activity.
Yeah.
About a fist from the mic.
Hey, y'all don't gotta put y'all right.
He is human, bro. He's
His nose is
What I'm saying,
bleeding.
you can put him in the car. That's some
We
bum
tried
ass
that for
shit.
10 minutes.
That's some bum ass shit, bro. That's some
And
bum
it's
ass
almost
shit.
like he's posing for a picture, the officer.
Yeah.
Did he say that they tried to put him in the car for the last 10 minutes?
Yeah, I thought I heard something like that as well.
Because that's what they were saying
Yeah.
too.
Doesn't look like it, honestly. Not to me.
Yeah. This again, you have 4 officers and a handcuffed man.
Yeah.
I can't see any reason for this.
Yeah,
Again,
like
what's
they
the
could
end game?
all
What-
three pick him up and put him in the car.
Yeah.
Yeah, and kind of what you said, like, because I saw a lot of pictures, or I say a lot, I saw several pictures of officers with knees on other people's necks, and this one still is different. This, like you said, this is a pose. Like, you see the other guys kind of piled in, and they're, like, working in there, right? He's just,
Mhm.
I'm just chilling.
Yeah, and that's exactly what it looks
I'm
like.
just chilling, and
Yeah. It's almost like get a good look here.
Yeah, exactly. Like,
Get a good
take your
look at
shots.
what I'm doing, which is it's horrendous. It
Yeah.
absolutely is horrendous. Now, some of this I didn't know if do you want to play this whole 10 minutes?
go through as much as you want.
Well, because it was just, I hate to belabor his suffering, and there are a lot of things that come later. Now, maybe we could get the conversation of him asking the guy to leave, because there's
You want to skip ahead a little bit?
if there's a way to do it.
yeah,
Yeah.
we'll skip ahead on it.
But
Like I said, if you guys want to watch the full video, I'll put it in the description.
yeah, and it's a hard one to watch. I will say this though, once you can get past it, it may take more than one view for you to really see, because you have to get over the emotional part of this, of what is actually happening. It's just horrendous. But to get to the truth, you've got to push through it and say, all right, what's going on here? What makes sense and what doesn't? This is a hyper emotionally charged event. It is absolutely with the utmost necessity that we determine what motive is. If it was race, then we need to deal with that. But if it was race and something else, we need to deal with that too. If this was purposeful to get us to be angry with one another, we need to find that out.
I have a hard time finding it.
Okay.
But there was, whether we hit this point or not, there was a point in there where one of the gentlemen says, he said he trained at the academy, and he said that looks like a jiu-jitsu move.
It's not jiu-jitsu.
Well, yeah, I've been doing jiu-jitsu for almost 2 years now, about a year and a half. And I've never done that to anybody, not a single person. And not only that, if in jiu-jitsu, if somebody did that to me, that'd be very easy to get out of. Anybody that's watching it that I train with, if you guys want to check it out and tell me if I'm wrong, any of the higher belts, which I don't believe I am, that is not a jiu-jitsu move, which adds to my thought process of that's a liar. Like, he's lying. If he says that I'm part of the academy and that is a jiu-jitsu move, that is not a jiu-jitsu move.
Well, he also may not know.
Well, yeah, he may not know, but I mean, if he's not, then why are you giving yourself credibility? Like, I go to the academy, that's a jiu-jitsu move. Like, I get what you're saying. Like, he could be just speaking out of his butt, but this is a very sensitive situation.
Because in jiu-jitsu, there are chokeholds.
Yeah, but I never choked anybody out with my knee on their neck.
No, not with your knee. I'm not saying that, but that could have been in his head the comparison. I'm playing devil's advocate.
I'm going through the list right now of, like, judo or anything that could possibly render that, and I literally can't think of anything. Yeah, you use your knees. You can use your knees to do some serious damage to somebody, because your knee is one of the hardest parts of your body, but you're not choking anybody out with your knee.
I understand. I'm just saying that what might have been the connection for him,
and maybe
to connect it with.
And I mean, he could have just been speaking, but I mean, I don't know. That's still, he was trying to give himself credibility.
This again seems like an attempt to sort of push the narrative, because now we're talking. Is it jiu-jitsu? Is it not? Here's the big question: why are you on his neck?
Yeah, exactly.
You got two other men that are holding him down. Why are you on his neck?
Yeah.
Again, it goes back to, this looks like intent.
Yeah.
Because there was no reason for him to be on his neck.
Yeah.
At all.
No.
So it really is irrelevant whether it was approved or not approved. Why was it even necessary?
Yeah.
Either way. So that's the question that has to be asked. We can go ahead and try that and see if that's the... Yeah, that's it. That's the location.
I'm trying to help y'all out, bro. You don't need to help me out, bro. I know your parents. I know everybody that owns the store. You don't need to help me the fuck out, bro. He's not fucking moving right now, bro.
I just saw that, man.
Bro, he was just moving when I walked up here.
Hey, I know that they did that to him.
You just get back out here,
I've
bro.
been watching it the
Bro,
whole time.
you just get back out here, bro.
Okay, he sounds like a teenager.
I was gonna say he sounds a little younger, but not that much younger.
He sounds like a teenager.
Can I let me interject something I hadn't seen before. The officer that's kind of standing guard over all of this, I don't know his name, the Oriental, it looks like. He actually, I just noticed that he joined in with the guy holding the camera, asking the kid to leave. Now, he didn't ask anybody else to leave. There are other people, the officers.
Interesting.
There are other people there, they have cell phones, and he's not asked anybody else to leave, but let him. Now, here's the thing. Is he so considerate of this teenager while they're killing this man that he's going to ask him to leave?
Yeah, I don't know, but
I'm talking about the officer. That's just odd. And I just noticed that as we were looking at it. I saw his hand. They're wearing these black gloves. And I saw him trying to direct in the same direction that the other guy was trying to get this new bystander that came up to go in that direction.
But
did he say it's for anybody else to leave in the video?
No, he engaged.
That's why I really think it was a teenager. Maybe he looked younger, because like when I was 16, 17 years old, I looked like I was 10 years old.
It's still weird.
Well,
either way you look at it, it's
one of the
weird.
things is, and we haven't seen it, you do see the young man walking off. Just as a brief shot of him walking away. And if he's a teenager, he's at least an older teenager. But it's hard to say. But it is kind of interesting that the officer is not concerned about anybody seeing this other than apparently that teenager. And I'm thinking, with all this other stuff going on, why would he care?
Yeah.
I mean, that just all of a sudden you have concern about a teenager, but the rest of it's okay.
Yeah.
I don't know. It just seems a little disjointed. Again, that's not another one of those swords I'm going to jump on, but there's just a lot of anomalies here that make me think there's something else going on. But anyway, that's that part of the video. Now, you can't see, and I don't know if you necessarily want to go through any more because there really is no more dialogue from Mr. Floyd.
One thing I did notice too was when they drove away in the ambulance, or when they were putting him in, is like I didn't see any stuff on like inside. Did you see a little bit inside? And that was kind of weird.
Yeah.
Like I thought those things were like decked out like with stuff.
Yeah, and again, part of it would be you would think that equipment, if there had been any in there, and there might have been, maybe we just couldn't see it. It just kind of looked weird.
Yeah.
But they didn't use any of it. Not that we could see.
Other than
Not to
the
do
gurney.
a head to foot check.
Didn't do anything.
Well, all of us have done CPR training.
Mm-hmm.
Part of CPR training is you make sure they start breathing. Once they start breathing, then you do a head to toe check.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't really check his pulse.
No.
They didn't make sure he was breathing. If he wasn't breathing, they didn't do CPR.
Yep.
And they didn't do the head to toe check.
No.
Now that's the thing about it. You just described a great assessment. We should have been done there. I mean, that's just simple CPR training.
And I just learned CPR this year.
Yeah.
Like zero experience.
Yeah. Did they do anything that you were trained?
No.
Okay, that's my point.
Yeah.
That's my point. And if people really look at this, they'll say they didn't do anything right.
Yep.
None of it was done right.
Agreed.
So like I said, the thing about it is, then when the ambulance arrives, it makes you wonder who called it and why, because they would have had to have notified the ambulance while he was still conscious and talking.
Yeah.
So there were a lot of things that just are really bothersome. This just really feels like the narrative is a hoax, not the event. That man was killed, but it seems like that there was a narrative built into this so that it could facilitate all the other stuff that involves bricks and Antifa and all of that. It just seems contrived.
And I think that's a good place to kind of transition into that. Like I said, I had the opportunity to go and see for myself what it was going on, right? Like I said, I think the best way you could describe it is I think there's three groups of people that are in these type of rallies, and the first one is the genuine, and I think they make up probably the bulk of it. The genuine people that want to have their voices heard, that want to exercise their constitutional rights, that want justice for George Floyd, and those are the people I definitely stand with. Like, you deserve to have your voice heard, but unfortunately I think that it's kind of being hijacked by two other people in this group, and that's the criminals, the opportunists, the ones that want to take stuff, the ones that want to, get that new TV, laptop, whatever, and they want to just destroy stuff. And then you have Antifa, right? The ones that are paying people to do these types of things, that are infiltrating, that are causing it to be worse than it actually is. And I will say this also, as far as our city goes, this is a positive swing. I think for the most part I was more proud of our city than any other city, because we didn't burn stuff to the ground, we didn't loot anything, we didn't do anything like that.
We did destroy a few cars.
We destroyed, as far as I know, one car, and one other guy got his Winnebago jumped on. I heard they took stuff, but I didn't see that person. I was there and I saw them jumping on it, but I didn't see them take anything. They may have, they may not have. But with that said, I will say it felt more of a block party. I mean, it felt like people were just dancing. People were dancing in the streets, and I'll post the video down in the description if you want to go check it out. Dancing in the streets, drinking. They were throwing stuff at people's cars, like water bottles and all that stuff, nothing that can cause a lot of damage. And just, directing traffic, stopping some people, toying with them. It just felt like as if a bunch of, high school or, early college people got together and was just like, hey, let's just go, paint the town red and have some fun, fool around. But there were some people there too that were, that were stating their voice. But unfortunately, I think, which is what I think the Munn Park was. I think they were the very genuine ones.
Yep.
And then the ones that, which I didn't go to the Munn Park one. As far as I know, that one went really well.
Yep.
But then another big group, it was a couple hundred people or so. They're the ones that blocked Memorial and like the big road that we all travel on, and for however many hours, and they caused traffic jams. You know, they were jumping on people's cars and all that stuff, and it was just playing loud music, saying.
And it's right next to a hospital.
Yeah.
So not only were they just stopping traffic, they were stopping people from getting to work.
Yep.
And people leaving work at that hospital.
Yep.
So just putting that in perspective as well.
And I mean, you smell weed everywhere. People drinking, people doing whatever. And then of course you had some people. I didn't see many of this people, but people that not protesting, but just kind of mad with their phones out, like, oh, I can't believe what they're doing, and stuff like that. You had a few of those people. But I mean, like I said, I think ultimately I was satisfied that nobody got hurt. That's what I was definitely praying for, was that nobody, not the protesters, not the police, not anybody watching or anything, get hurt. And I was very satisfied with that. I was so happy that didn't happen. But it felt block party-ish. People just wanted to hang out. And when I think of Martin Luther King, because everybody's quoting him and everybody's saying, that rioting is the voice of the unheard. But Martin Luther never rioted. Like he never partied in the street. Like they sat in, it was serious to them. It was very serious to them. And they locked hand in hand and walked down the street with their signs and, pushed for equality and sat in the restaurants, and people and that's the thing is like, hold on, let me finish this one thought real quick. And that's the thing is like, when you sit and you don't do anything stupid, you're not angry, you're not hateful, and then the opposition is angry and hateful and beats the snot out of you, who do you think people are going to side with? The people that are actually there for love. They're saying, hey, I want to be treated like a normal human being, and then they don't get treated like a normal human being. Everybody else watching that, yeah, it sucks that the person's getting the snot beat out of them, but it makes me go, like, oh my gosh, look at how horrible those people are being to them. Like, I don't want to stand with them, but unfortunately that's not.
Yeah. And I saw a protest videotaped down in Colorado, Denver, Colorado, and everyone was laying on the floor.
Yeah,
I can't breathe, and that was the protest, and I thought that spoke volumes. And the second thing is, I hate seeing people keep posting this, and this is driving me a bit crazy. If you don't like what I'm going to say, I don't care. But people are saying, oh, you care more about people destroying these buildings and looting than you care about this one man's life. No. I think Brandy said it really well before we started recording, was that if we had to choose between a man's life and stuff, we would choose the man's life for him to live. I think we're all in agreement with that. But when you are destroying people's livelihoods, people's opportunities to work, you are causing people to potentially be depressed, commit suicide. You're also bringing up insurance. Insurance is now having to fix all of this stuff, which means insurance policies are going to go up too, which means prices are going to go up. And who does that affect? That affects all of us. And then in a couple of months, whenever all prices have gone up and we're all very frustrated because now when I paid $3 for milk, now I'm paying $6 for milk or whatever the price is. I don't know. I think it's $3. And now that's being doubled. Like that hurts all of us. Yep. And that impacts all of us on a mental level. Coronavirus, like that was a big deal. A lot of people got depressed because of that. Because now I can't physically touch someone. Now we have this looting. Now we have curfews. It's starting all over again. How do you think this makes people feel? Now I can't work again. I can't make money to support my family. Maybe, and I'm sorry, this is going to get really dark. Maybe if I just kill myself, my family's going to have that life insurance policy.
And unfortunately, that's a very real thing. Because if those that don't know, I'm a life insurance agent and investment agent. And I had to do my first payout, and like a life claim. Somebody had killed themselves. And I have no doubt in my mind that I'm sure a part of it, I'm sure there was a lot of it to it, but probably being locked in your house didn't help. You know, it probably didn't help at all. And so that's a very real thing. And I was getting, not into an argument, but I was talking with somebody, and they said the same thing, you know, choosing stuff over people's lives. And I said, you do know that every 1% that the unemployment goes up, that's 40,000 more a year die. People literally are dying because you want to destroy stuff, and it's already a horrendous unemployment rate right now because of coronavirus, and you're just going to make it worse because you're justified in your upsetness, but you're not justified to destroy anything, and you're not justified to hurt people, you know. And I'm sorry, you're just not justified.
Yeah, if you're going to destroy something, I guess maybe you won't agree with me, but if you're going to destroy something because you're mad.
Destroy your own stuff.
I was gonna say destroy the police department's building or whatever. Not that I agree with that. But if you're really trying to designate your anger at somebody and it's the police or law enforcement, why are you destroying other people's stuff who had nothing to do with
But
it?
black people are cops too. Like, you're affecting your race still. Like, you're still affecting your race.
Here's the thing: if you take police. If you just go ahead and let's just get rid of the police, let's just do it. What are we going to do?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
What are we going to do? What's your
No,
alternative?
I'm not saying I want to get rid of the police.
But the point is this, and you said it right. You have people that this is just a big party. Man died. Man was killed. Man was murdered. It was horrendous. And there's a narrative out there to foster this kind of anger. But there's some that it's just fun. It's just games. It wasn't fun and games for Mr. Floyd. And here's the real problem. It's not fun and games for everybody. There are a lot of people that are deadly serious out there. Yep. And there are 2 police officers, as I sit here now, that I know of that have been murdered because of this situation. Both of them were black. This is insanity. Insanity. You have done absolutely nothing for the memory of Mr. Floyd other than to hurt yet again 2 more upstanding men in the black community. You've killed them. You've taken their lives away for no reason. For no reason. We have got to get to the bottom of what is the motive behind this. There are a lot of anomalies here, and if it turns out just to be race, then we need to deal with that. But there are enough anomalies on there. This thing is this tape. There is enough in there that you have to scratch your head and say there may be something more going on here. Because after it occurred, it looked like they were well prepared to create anarchy. You got to give that some thought. But for those who think it's a big joke, there are 2 men now dead that had families, and they were elderly. They were retired. I take that back. One was a retired police officer, and he was just trying to help a friend of his from the looting at, I think it was a pawn shop, and somebody just shot him and killed him. They may never know who it was because everybody's wearing masks now. And then you had a federal officer, also black, who was also killed. This is insanity. We're killing the very people that we're supposed to be defending. This just doesn't make any sense. So we have got to try to get to the bottom of this, and the bottom line is basically this. We're a divided country, and we're divided in religion too. That makes it very, very difficult. But I will say this for those of you who call yourself by the name of Christian, follow Yeshua, and you claim his name as being your Lord. He said, love your enemies. He said, do good to those who don't do good to you. He said, turn the other cheek. If someone takes your coat, then you give them your shirt too. Yep. If they want you to walk a mile, walk 2. What we have to do, and it sounds trite, love is hard. Love is hard. Yep. You have to deny yourself and say, you know what, there are powers greater than me that tell me that we need to love one another. That's our answer. It's not trite. It is the answer. We must love one another. But not everybody believes the same way. That's why we're so greatly divided. Yep. A house divided against itself cannot stand. My master, Yeshua, told me that. And I believe it. I think we're in great trouble. I think that there are powers and things that are going on here that we can't even begin to understand. Powers and principalities, as the scripture would say. And we're seeing those things work in our very lives right now. For those of you who are believers of Yeshua, you do need to pray. Pray for your families. But I think to pray for the nation, let me go to one other thing, because I see a lot of people posting about praying for the nation. Yeshua said that a house divided can't stand. That's us. Yep. Now, he's either the Son of God or he isn't. He either knows what he's talking about or he doesn't. I believe with all my heart that he does. But I don't pray for the nation anymore. I pray for the remnant, and I pray for people. There was one place in the scripture, and I think it's in Luke 15. Yeshua was looking over a city that he loved, just like we love America. And he loved that city. But he looked over it and he knew that they had walked away from God. And here he was delivering a message and they weren't listening. And he lamented and he began to weep over it because he knew what was coming. He knew, and he told them what was coming, and he wept because there was nothing that could be done, because what was occurring was in the people's hearts in Jerusalem. They were about to reap what they had sown. I weep over America, but I realize we're about to reap what we have sown. We have gone against the tenets of God, and we are seeing it in our streets. And Yeshua has said that nation will rise against nation, ethnic group against ethnic group. Trump is not going to be the savior.
No.
Joe Biden is not going to be the savior. There is no man on this planet that's going to be the savior. This is going to get worse. But I got news for you, and it's good news. We were told in advance. We were told by a man 2,000 years ago that this was going to happen. He told us 2,000 years ago, this man with 12 disciples said, men are going to come in my name. And here 2,000 years later, as those scriptures went across time with that word, men are going to come in my name, it has come to fruition. I trust that man. I trust Yeshua. And I know that bad times are going to come. But Yeshua said that he who endures to the end will be saved. We have to hold on to the tenets that Yeshua gave us. He was the Prince of Peace. He is our master for those of you who follow him. Therefore, you're not greater than the master. If he is the Prince of Peace, you likewise have to walk in his footsteps. Love one another. It's hard. It's tough, particularly if somebody's hitting you in the head. But we have to do this. That's the only answer we have. So I didn't mean to get off on a sermon, but the bottom line is we want
to it if I can.
I wish you would.
We've not been given a heart of fear, especially I speak that to the Christians. And if every decision that we make is from that viewpoint, then you're not making the right decisions, unfortunately. Death is a very real thing. I actually had a lot of people asking me, why would you go down there? Like, you could have been killed. A lot of people were thankful that I took the video. I'm not worried about myself. I know one day me, my entire family, even my kids are all going to die one day, right? Maybe even sooner than I would like. And I've come to terms with that, and I think we all need to come to terms with that death is there, and it's always prevalent. I think death is a very sobering thing. So don't let it make your decisions because you want to prolong death just a little bit. We're here for a time and to do good. And if that good costs us our life, what better way to go? So don't be afraid. Like, don't be afraid at all. Do you guys have any more to add to that?
I'll end it from my part is this, and we mentioned this before. We see all these things going on. We are sheep in the middle of a game of wolves. We're in need of a shepherd. His name's Yeshua. You want to solve this? That's where the answer is. Most people aren't going to come, but that is where the answer is. You're a sheep. You need a shepherd that will love you into eternity. And that's where I'll leave it.
The video just went out. That's funny. But yeah, the video went out, but the audio is still going. Do you want to add anything, Steph, to it?
I just wanted to add, I'm just reading through through the book of Romans, And none of us are good.
Nope.
Not a single one of us.
Nope.
And it's only Jesus Christ who saves us.
That's right.
Through his grace, through his sacrifice. Amen. And so if we need to follow somebody and you're not a Christian, I beg you to look at Jesus Christ. Absolutely. And see the kind of life that he lived, the kind of people that wanted to follow him. Mm-hmm. And they weren't upstanding citizens. No. They were the prostitutes. Nope. They were the thieves and the robbers and the sinners. Like, they were down on their luck people, mm-hmm. and they saw Jesus, and they saw him as the Savior, and he still is the Savior.
Right. Absolutely.
So if you need someone to follow, Randy's right. It's Jesus Christ.
Yeah. And speaking of following, if you guys would like to see more videos, hit that subscribe button and click the like button and the notification bells and all that stuff. Even though I'm finite and you should follow Jesus first, I guess if you have to choose, follow Jesus, please. Yeah, so we love you guys. Unless you guys have more to add, you guys want to say? Okay. So love you guys. I know that there's another protest on Sunday at 2 o'clock in Munn Park. I will probably be there. And I'll keep you guys updated.
With Randy posting, get out.
Yeah, with my dad, get out.
Yeah, I had to give him a spanking for that last one. I hated to do it, but it was necessary.
I cried. But I love you guys. I hope that we can unite, and so that we can, get some unity in here, like seriously, and some love. I would love to see this nation turn around, but even if it does, I know that how it ends eventually. Either way, we would just be prolonging the inevitable. But, yeah. So I love you guys. I will see you on the next video. So everybody say bye.
Thanks for having me.
Bye.
Bye-bye.